A successful business doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of hard work, dedication, and persistence, which is exactly what the Coffee and Hustle podcast is all about.
So what is an opportunity specialist? Well, you get to meet Leslie Moody, the opportunity specialist with PassionHR, who has such a great appreciation for her own life and career opportunity, so that she meets the desire to get the right people with the right job. So today we're going to talk about the person behind the resume. So the business owner develops a great team and culture that meets the job requirement for that vision or that opportunity in that position so that they fulfill what they need for their business. So join me on today's podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Coffee and Hustle podcast today. In this episode today, we're going to talk about the person behind the resume. And I am Carla with Design by Carla, and joining me on this podcast discussion is Leslie Moody. She is the opportunity specialist at PassionHR. Welcome to this podcast today. I'm very excited about this podcast because I think genuinely you're probably one of the nicest people I've come across. You are genuinely a great and wonderful person. So this is a really special podcast to really share your story today. So welcome on our podcast today, Leslie.
Well, Carla, I've already been looking so forward to that, but that is such a kind thing for anyone to say. And it's actually kind of surprising because I'm such a cynical person sometimes that nice isn't a word that it's a word I want to be, but for you to describe me that way is really special. Thank you.
So your title is called an opportunity specialist with PassionHR. Would you enlighten us and tell us, what does that mean? What does that title really mean for you?
Well, first of all, from a business standpoint, I asked for this as a title because when I introduce people, myself to people, they immediately say, "What does that mean?" And I get to give them, my elevator speech. But on a personal level, Mike hired me coming out of a season where I'd gotten divorced. Within 6 months, I was diagnosed with a potentially, in fact, doctors, and we met about this time, doctors, even an attorney had said, you can't go back to work. And so getting to work again was an opportunity, but it wasn't the first great, really cool opportunity I've had in my life. I've sold children's shoes for a manufacturer out of Canada, worked from home 20 years ago. I actually launched that product in the United States. In fact, a lot of people who listen to your show probably put them on their children, Robbie's footwear out of Canada. Then I got to be a restaurant owner by the time I was 35. And actually younger than that, I was about 30, 31, and got that off the bucket list early enough in life to realize that wasn't what I wanted to aspire to, but had a fantastic time and learned a lot about myself. We made it 18 months, which is longer than 90% of restaurants. So I still say that we got an A. That's what I consider the glorious failure chapter of my career. But while I was there, I met the then news director at Way 31. And when he was moved to the director of new media, he and his wife actually called me one night and said, I want you to come be my sales director. I said, well, I don't even know what new media means or what you sell or how. And he said, me neither. We'll figure it out together. So, and then to worked there, ended up in this season, get a chance to recreate myself again, working for Mike. It just felt right. So now I get to help other people find their opportunities as well. That's what drives me.
Well, I think that when you share your story, it's like you see the different waves of these opportunities that have come your way and how you've changed and molded yourself. Being that you're now running that part where you're kind of being the opportunist, do you feel different in that role now that you've learned a lot about yourself? What do you teach other people about themselves once you've read their resume, and do you get to know them on a different kind of level?
Yeah, so I think clients are always my clients, my priority, and I have responsibilities to them. If I don't keep those responsibilities, I don't keep a job. Um, but what really drives me are the job seekers. And it actually makes me better for my clients because I'm always looking to connect, not just skills, but the personality and culture. I want someone for it to be an opportunity like what I've had. And be a great thing that they love. So I want to make sure that it's somewhere they want to be and they get fulfillment from it, grow and develop for a lot of years.
So I really do think that that's such a great way of looking at things because people can put things on a resume to make them look good, right? Have you come across those resumes that kind of have that extra little fluff in there, knowing the fact that they really did not have the skills, or did you figure that out when you met them versus when they write it on their resume? Do you kind of decipher that?
Well, I don't think I see that as much. And I mean, yes, definitely. Sometimes we'll even do skills testing, but you can pretty quickly, if you know enough about the job and the business, which is why it's so important. I have to get to know the companies I work with and the position to be able to do it. But the skills part, I really haven't run across as much. What I find more frequently is I talk to somebody and I'm like, why doesn't it say that on your resume? We are not good at bragging about ourselves. So I would encourage anybody to have somebody else look at their resume. Make sure that you're really putting all your best stuff out there.
Yeah, because I think as some of us are just like, we just try to do just enough to put on the resume to get the job, but not really necessarily, put all their skills needed, because you're thinking that when you put the resume together, you're doing the right thing. But in all, you need to be having someone to review that,
Absolutely. And a lot of times too, you don't think about skills as something that's important to the resume, or you think, well, I don't necessarily need to put the name of the software that I'm using because I can use any software to do this. But sometimes I'm searching specifically for someone that knows Deltek or knows this particular version of ADP. And so, detailed things like that. I guess another way to look at, because you do want to stay really skills focused. People, the current hiring market, people don't hire degrees, they hire skills. But even more than that, they hire people. And so finding a way to communicate skills, but still get across beyond just the task that you've done into how you've contributed and interacted, what you've learned about yourself. Good resumes will even say, somehow state that they learned a hard lesson in that job.
You just said something I thought that was very interesting, was that people don't hire degrees, they hire skills. So is that something is that a key component in these resumes when you're talking about these things? When people are putting those out in front of people, do they really need to, I mean, not that you got to quit college, but because college is all about the experience of getting something that you worked really hard for. But is the skills important? We need to be working toward more of those skill-based aspects.
Colleges, there are a lot of jobs, most of what I do, because they are more senior level executive type. There are a lot of jobs that it's just the requirement. It indicates that you can finish something.
Yes.
Right. And so I would say anyone who has the means to do it without a ton of debt, and that's the path that they want to go, should go to college. You don't have to go to college immediately either. A lot of people do better doing it, but there's such a demand in the market for skills, that for someone that doesn't have that option, or just doesn't like to do certain things or do the classroom part, skills are really important. In terms of what's on your resume, though, so many times when we're looking for people, we're using search the way that your clients are using to be found for marketing and advertising. We're looking for you based on those search terms too.
So they need to be thinking about not only that, but not just the skills, but also making sure that the information that's on that resume fits that job, right? That, not saying that, and I mean, what I mean by that is, like, you're saying that they need to have a resume that can be customizable.
Absolutely. And I'm glad I saw you kind of hesitate there. I have had an instance where someone sent me a resume that it basically they copied the job description and put that as their experience. Well, I'd created that job description from things that client had told me. So I knew that she didn't do exactly those things, you know. So that right there was like, okay, not just this, just that's shady. Don't do it too closely, but do look at, again, going back to, because you don't want a 6-page resume, you know, but um, looking at the job description and then thinking through all of your experience and then changing some customizable things, because my original kind of point there was that you could actually, if you had time and wanted to do this, you could have a business just writing resumes for keywords,
Yeah.
because that's how we're finding them. So know what your keywords are, look for jobs by keywords, and then make sure that those are in there. I mean, really young tech savvy certain fields like advertising or things that work in social media, resumes will often have a list of hashtags.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I never thought about the hashtag part, but I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, it kind of puts a thought process out there when you're thinking about that. You're just thinking, I got a resume done. Let me just submit it. But now you're thinking, oh my gosh, if I want to get in front of people, I've got to really put some thought processes to it.
Yeah, I mean,
But, when you're young and you're trying to get into these jobs, it's really good to know these kind of things, because if you really want to get in front of people, there's a balance, right? You gotta have the credentials, right? But you also gotta have the skills, and then you gotta write it right. So resumes have changed over the years, haven't they?
From even the very, you've got to stand out. I mean, a lot of times, again, you're being found through web crawlers, through search.
Yeah.
So you've got to stand out.
There's a little bit more sophistication to it.
Yeah, but it's not that difficult. It doesn't have to be daunting. Instead of doing a list of skills, just do a list of hashtags with those skills.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I never even thought about that. That's a genius thing to do. So actually, that's a great way of looking at it. Now, you're really, besides just the opportunity, we talk about the opportunity that you're doing, right? But you are also just one of those go-getters. You have years of sales and communication, so you know exactly what you're looking for in those resumes when you're talking to people. But when you're getting to know these people, you're also knowing the fact that maybe they don't fit in that position, but maybe they fit somewhere else. Do you do that too?
Absolutely. I let them know from the very beginning. I call it graceful honesty, that I'm going to ask them hard questions, because again, I'm not looking to just place them somewhere. I want to place them somewhere they're going to love. So yeah, I will absolutely tell somebody this isn't going to be the right place. I'll usually actually help them come to that. Say, well, let me tell you this about this position. How do you feel about that?
Right.
And usually it doesn't take a couple of questions until they're like, I don't really know. Do you have anything else?
Do you have any hard times finding really that right person to fit that job sometimes?
It depends on the job. I mean, look for a IT security engineer for private industry here in Huntsville, where we have most people want to work in government, because immediately with a clearance, you can get into pension programs. And so to find somebody for private industry is very difficult. A lot of times it's not usually finding the personality type that's difficult. It's finding the skills.
It's finding those skills.
Yeah.
And so you've seen this. I've seen such a great change in Huntsville, and we all know that. We can see this increase here. A lot of our jobs coming here, a lot of opportunities for people. And this is a great way for you to reach out to these people to let them know, hey, there's an opportunity here. It's how do we take the opportunity to find that right job for you? Because eventually we all got to be happy, right? So we don't necessarily fill a job because it's a place, but you are a person that really believes in finding that right person for that right position so that they are happy. So how does that feel when you've accomplished that?
Oh, it's absolutely one of the most unreal things. It's interesting. Now I do more executive level, but I help assist our team with the entry level manufacturing stuff. There's been a young lady recently that, helping her first secure a job that was paying her about $14 an hour after years of making 8 to 10. She was ecstatic, and she started working so hard to get hired full time. And she recently has gotten an offer and been hired full time. Now she has her own benefits, and she has been just giddy to watch. That's such the drive. The reason we do what we do. The lower level people are usually much more excited than the people who, I've placed top executives who you'll offer them high six figures and they'll come back and say, I don't like the title.
Right.
But at all levels, a lot right now too is requiring people to relocate. And so it's not just changing their jobs, it's changing their entire
lives.
lives.
Right.
And it's usually a move, a change they've really been looking for. So that's really fun. I do want to balance here though, that is something I said earlier about the client is obviously they're the client and there are certain responsibilities. One of the difficult things about my job is that I do get really connected to people, and I have to really encourage them, like, look, you still have to really be looking yourself, because my business just isn't set up to operate in a way that I really can take a resume and like shop it around town, to find somebody.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's a matter of, if this isn't the right thing, I might have something at that time that's similar, but it may be 6 months before I call them back.
Yeah. So when you're talking about opportunity, and we talk about that again here, is that what really inspires a great team? What inspires that for you? And with Mike and Passion HR, the team aspect here, do you feel like there's putting that right person into a position or a job is important, not just for the company, but as a team?
Without a doubt. They say people don't quit jobs, they quit supervisors. People don't enjoy their work because of the work they do. They enjoy their work because of the people that they work with. And so the difference in someone going into an environment where they can do the skills and then they're happy, and so they don't stay that long, and them coming and staying and building connections with people that then you as a team feel ownership for the business, then that propagates out into the rest of the organization. So yeah, it's definitely important. And we've all had an experience where just you can be great, and the hiring managers can be great. In my case, they always make the ultimate decision, but you can make mistakes. Like for job seekers, you can do everything to make sure that they know what's going on, but there are always things that come up that may not work. But we've all occasionally had that was just a total surprise, just bad hire, or someone who came into an organization and it quickly sours team and morale. So yeah, it's really it's important, not just for keeping that one employee, but for keeping all of your employees together and then working in a way that is driving your business growth.
So when I was doing some research when we were talking about, doing this podcast, and I look at opportunities. Sometimes we miss opportunities, in places when we're not ready. And sometimes you have to be ready for that opportunity. And I was looking at that because originally I was thinking about naming our podcast, What is Opportunity? And I know that sounds very generic, but I think sometimes we miss opportunity because we're not open enough for it, right? Or we not take the chances. Do you think there's a difference between a chance and an opportunity?
Definitely. That's a great way to ask it. I mean, a chance is something comes up and you just leap of faith, not much reason. An opportunity is something that beyond that moment, beyond fixing your immediate need, it grows you to the next stage, and builds you, or solves some problem in your life. I mean, look, let's be realistic. In some cases, if you're trying to support a family and a job comes up that pays more money and that will make that easier, then that's all the opportunity that you need. There doesn't need to be much more to it, other than, of course, you still need to like the place, because more money, it doesn't matter if you come home to your family and you're miserable and you're.
Yeah, I think there's for me, it's like sometimes it's both. Like the chances that you take, right, actually could lead to opportunity. right?
Sure.
But then, you know what I mean? And you have to kind of have that foresight to go, okay, if I take this leap of faith, would this make me happy? And if it's a chance I'm willing to take, like for me, it's like I took a chance to start my business. Didn't know if I was actually going to grow. Didn't know if I was even going to keep the business. And at the time, I was like praying that there was a check in the mail when I had little ones in the, you know, thinking, did I make the right choice, right? That was a chance to see where it would go. The opportunity of that is like I had the opportunity to be around my kids while I ran my business, right? So I think there could be a balance between the two, right? And figuring out which one fits you the most.
So maybe a chance is something more that you self create and decide to do for yourself, for kind of regardless of, you know, maybe that's a chance, and an opportunity is something that they could overlap.
Right.
Basically.
There could be that overlap.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying it's 50-50, but there's that overlap. But
Yeah.
I was looking up, and what was interesting was like the three questions that stood out for me for opportunity was, do I understand what my day-to-day will be in this role when you look at opportunity? And do you feel that way when you're filling that position for that person too at the same time? Like, even though you've got a list of jobs and here's their requirements, does that person fit that role in that day to day, right?
Well, from the client standpoint, where I have the responsibility is to understand the day to day, and for them to know that the person can do that day to day. You know, there's a difference in someone who, let's say, has done payroll for a company of 25, and then what the day to day of payroll looks like for a company of 200.
Right.
So, you know, we definitely explore what does the job look like. That's every job that I launch. I mean, I know that they're typically thinking, why do you need to know all this stuff? You're not coming in to do the job. But if I'm going to be able to look for somebody that can do it, I've really got to understand it. So, yeah, I mean, the day to day is the skills play into the day to day and the experience, but definitely part of it.
Well, you know, when you think about that in some ways or another, I mean, I know our day to day is like, you know, we want to make sure that it's fulfilled when you're looking at that job. But the second one I thought was a really good one was, does the opportunity align with my professional goals? And so when you're looking at opportunity, does it fit me? Does it give me an opportunity to grow within the company? Or is this the position that I'm going to be stuck at for a while? Am I going to be happy with it? Do you, in some ways or another, you know, being that, you know, you're trying to be an opportunist, you're trying to fit that person for that role. Does that sometimes kind of make you feel like, is this person ready for this particular goal? You know, when you're looking at this resume.
So that certainly is part of the conversation as well. You know, a lot of people right now, especially because unemployment is so low, they're employed and their resumes are out there, and they're like, well, I'm not in a hurry, but if the right thing, you know, comes along, because what they are looking for is the next step. They've been doing what they're doing long enough that it's gotten boring. And so I think sometimes helping them moderate what they think the next step is, what they're ready for, is a conversation. But I also have to say, as far as, you know, when you consider, is this a good opportunity? You're talking to someone who, my personality style and my just work style is driven by what now has a term, curious intelligence. So the fact that I've done so many different things is largely a result of the fact that I do it, even a job that changes every day. I get distracted by other opportunities, and so
are you saying you're a squirrel sometimes?
I'm a squirrel all the time.
I mean, I think about sometimes I'm like, you know, I had those moments where, you know, I'm in the middle of doing something, and all of a sudden I'm like, you know, deviated over somewhere else, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a squirrel. You know what I mean? So I have to focus, you know, on exactly what task I'm working on at that very given moment without any interruption. So I understand that, you know, when you're looking at those things, but and you have to look at the values of that company too, because, you know, I know that's got to be such a kind of a hard position to be in, because you've got to find that right person for that job and still make that client happy too. Do you feel that pressure sometimes? Or should I not say pressure? Do you feel happy that you find the right person for that job?
Oh, every single time. And I'll tell you, I mean, one of the downsides about the work that I do is that there are many times you put a whole bunch of hours into something, and then you don't find the right person. They find it some other way, or sometimes they'll say, we've got this person we've decided just to promote in. When you don't get to, it's like a treasure hunt.
Right.
Especially to your internet sleuthing to find people and getting to know people. The very worst thing is when you have to call somebody that really, really, really wanted that job and tell them, I'm sorry, you weren't selected.
Oh.
And the current environment in HR is not to get much feedback. I mean, that's what is becoming more and more common as it's being advised to, that even to tell somebody something like, we just saw somebody better, it just leaves them to wonder, well, what was better? And so there is a trend of basically just saying, we've moved forward without you.
Okay, so there's a difference in how we use our words then, is how you're saying it. So that you're saying that HR is changing on how we let that person down?
So let me actually rephrase this a little bit, because I am not an HR consultant, or I'm not, my background is not HR and the legal part and that sort of thing. I'm a recruiter. I'm somebody who can talk to people and get to know things really fast and has a good gut sense to connect things.
You kind of that liaison.
So I don't want to represent that HR is doing anything.
Right.
But in the publications and that sort of thing that I read, that are HR articles and topics, I'm reading that a lot, these tips for how to dismiss people. Now, in my role, I often still don't have anything more than that from the client. And because of these things that I'm reading, I certainly wouldn't say anything on their behalf. But because I've gotten to know them, I can sometimes say, I don't have feedback other than, that we're not moving forward. I can tell you just from I wouldn't have sent you if I didn't think that you were a good candidate. Right. It's usually just, we discuss, but then I'll say, moving forward in interviews, here's what I might suggest you consider to do differently. So in my role, I can do it a little differently.
Yeah. So that's a great way of looking at things too, is like you've seen these changes in such a short amount of time, because COVID really made a lot of things, the movement of COVID and how the domino effect has happened with the job market. Right. And do you feel like that it gets harder to find the right candidate, or has it become a little bit easier? How has COVID shifted that in the job market for you?
I don't really pinpoint it specifically to well.
Do you feel like a lot of people are looking for jobs?
Not enough.
Not enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, we have that shortage.
Oh,
right.
huge shortage, and it's from entry-level manufacturing positions that now. I have a client in Hartselle, Alabama. I'm starting people in the high teens and then giving them an additional raise at like 90 days. So
just to keep them on.
Well, just because
to get them,
just because that's what's the norm in manufacturing right now. Then it's same thing on the other end of the spectrum. It took, I wasn't working with them long, but it took another company locally that I eventually ended up placing the position more than a year, excuse me, to find a VP level HR director or HR person. So it's everything from low end to all the way up the spectrum. I'll tell you, the last 2 weeks, huge spike in requests for accounting related jobs at a variety of levels.
Why is that, you think? Because of the companies that are coming here?
No idea.
You could see the wave of different jobs coming in at certain times?
This may have just been a coincidence. It's the first time I can ever say that that it's been like, whoa. But yeah, I would, it's interesting, the spike. And they're everything from like large companies that need a kind of 5, 6 year experience person to controllers.
Wow, that's amazing. So, is it? Do you feel like that there's a shift in the change market? I mean, for people to work, or is it? I mean, why do we have this shortage now? Because I hear it a lot, I read it a lot, I see it in the media. Why is it? Is it people just not wanting to go back to work? Are people afraid to go back to work? Do you, or what is that question that we're missing?
Well, here in the Tennessee Valley, we have a special situation. We've known that this was coming for some time, that we were going to potentially have a labor shortage, specifically in skilled labor, manufacturing, trades. Of course, then the same things that have happened everywhere else happened here to compound that. And so I think we have a different situation. Of course, I do think there are some people in the world that maybe just don't want to work. But what I see much more often with COVID, a big chunk of the workforce that's working are jobs that pay typically like under 45 or so, and are often a second income. Those were the people that went home when the kids had to go home because somebody had to be there to help with school. And they found they had to live. So they either had to get creative. I've heard of one person who started asking their neighbors on Thursday, here's what my family's having, or on Monday, here's what my family's having for dinner on Thursday. If you'd like, for this amount of money, I'll have it and delivered to your house. So all you have to do is pop it in the oven and reheat when it's time for dinner. She now has different neighborhoods every night of the week and has turned it into a business. Or the other people either had to get creative or they had to just cut things and figure it out, make ends meet. And what they found, though, was that their lives were more peaceful and they would rather do without those things than have two people back in the workforce. Those people aren't coming back. Some of them want to come back and can't find daycare.
That's actually a very good question there because when we talk about opportunity, we talk about resumes, but we're also seeing that shift, right? Like you're seeing a shift of families changing how they're using work time because, like you said, it had moved into both parents working, the children go to school, and now that they've changed a shift, you've seen people now really enjoying that family time together, and they're not going back to full-time jobs, or they've created new businesses, which is another way of saying there's opportunity there. So I've seen a really increase in small businesses of, even though we have a loss of small businesses, we're trying to get people back into that creative aspect of creating new businesses. So I think that's an incredible aspect. But yes, I think there is a huge shift and also I see is our younger generation not working 40 hours a week. They're okay working part-time or remote. They're traveling more. They're less looking for the high-end, expensive cars and houses.
Yeah, well, they also often live with their parents.
They're probably living with their parents.
So but no,
I'm not saying
I'm going to backtrack that just simply because I think that pre-COVID, all of these ideas that the millennials had about, less work, more play, work-life balance, working remotely because they could. I mean, they've known computers since infancy. The rest of us are like, eh. Well, after COVID, now that people have had a different taste, it doesn't matter whether it's because of the way it changed your family or people have just said, wow, I lost some friends. Life is short. But I mean, there are people who are saying, I've been doing this VP level job in accounting for years, and I really haven't enjoyed it for years. Way back in my career, I did HR. I want to apply for that HR generalist job that pays half or less than half because motivations have changed. I think we are looking a lot more now at the the millennials and saying some of that stuff may not be so bad.
Yeah, I think that we're all looking at them going, wow, they actually had something going right for themselves, because we're workhorse, right? We're from the boomer, we work hard, we drive nice cars, whatever it may be, but we've been taught to work hard for whatever we have. Where, our kids now, our younger kids are looking at us going, wow, my parents really worked so hard. Either, now going, wow, maybe we should enjoy. I don't want to be 60, 70 before I got to enjoy life. They're wanting to enjoy it as they go. And I think some of us are shifting to that aspect too, where we're taking longer vacation time, you know what I mean? Not just 1 week or 2 weeks. Some of my friends are taking 4 weeks off, and I'm like, okay, I would love to have that. But I think that shift is really healthy, because now we're dealing with a huge increase in mental health issues. People are getting worn out. Stress related situation of that isolation during COVID really affected a lot of people, more than I think they had expected. And I think it's still the percentages are still really, really high. What do you say? Have you come across those people that are changing their lifestyle to fit their needs now in this job market?
Absolutely. Like I said, it just mentalities have just changed. There was something you said through there that brought something so great to my mind, and of course it fleeted. But that's why I kind of got distracted from this question. But yeah, I see a lot of people a lot of the moves are motivated by people saying, and I will say too, and I'm just going to make a brief statement about this because I don't want to go there at all. But a lot of people, COVID really sparked intense division in our country socially. And I have a lot of people who this move is motivated by, I want to live where people think more like me in terms of mask and immunizations and whatever things might, kind of overlap into that. So yeah, there are a lot of people who just whatever the need is, adjusting work to fit life instead of life to fit work. Oh, I know what it was, because this was good. You were talking about COVID actually probably would have been really good for all of us if it hadn't been so stressful to have gone home and taken a break, because there's in advertising, there's an old adage that somebody needs to see something 3 times before they even remember it. That was from like the 80s. Think about how many more images you see now than we did in the 80s. How many more tasks in a day we do with computers, how much we do. I am of the opinion that we are all short-circuited. Every kid I know at some point has been recommended Adderall. Every adult, not every, but many of the adults I know have developed late life ADD. And I don't think it's that we have attention deficit disorder. I think it's that we have stimuli overload.
I was about to say, is it overstimulation?
Exactly.
It's just so much hitting us at one time, all the time, that we're not really taking the time to unplug it, take a break, readjust. And I think with COVID, some of that happened to some of us, where we did take those breaks, where we actually took a moment. No, not that we weren't stressed out. There was a lot of people stressed out. There was a lot of people dealing with a lot of things that were happening. And it changed, I think, our lifestyle completely. I think we look at life a little bit differently. I think we're selective about who we're hanging out with more. We're selective about what groups we're hanging out with. Networking wise, we're, changing how we're networking. So we've not only have come in person, but now we're online more, right? Meetings online, meetings in person. It can be that aspect of, being, overwhelmed with stimulation. And I think that that's where you and I both agree with that. And I agree with you too. We've got a lot of people coming here that would never normally moved here.
Well, they start looking. They say, I'd like to move south. I would like to move to one of these states. And when they look at opportunity, I mean, Huntsville year after year after year is like top 3 in the country for opportunity and growth. So so they identify Huntsville. So we are definitely finding a lot of people coming from out of town. Um,
Well, I want to ask you a question that's a little bit different in this direction. Is like, what really drives your passion? What is your passion? What drives that?
just pure life gratitude. Actually, that's the word, gratitude. Um, I've had a roller coaster life and a lot of evolution and through the past few years. And once you start to kind of live your life from a place of gratitude, then you just want to make other people
You want
their
them
lives better
you want them to see
too.
you want them
You
to see
know,
what you've
yeah. I mean,
not to take
I
life
guess,
for granted.
not to like be blasphemous and kind of plagiarize, but I guess it's kind of almost like the fruit of the spirit kind of thing, like once you kind of feel that, it's just kind of why you do what you do. And
take
yeah,
every
so
day take every day as a blessing.
but even more than that, just I mean, look for ways to just enhance, stop worrying about things, because in the end, the worst things, bad things are going to happen,
Right.
But in the end, it won't be the things that you're worrying about, likely, and it's not going to change anything, by worrying about it. Instead of worrying, put that energy into who can I help today? How can I? And that's why falling into a job like this where I'm getting to help companies be better, which I've always loved and been part of from having.
You could be somebody else's inspiration. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
In
I
some ways or
wouldn't
another?
say that, but about myself, but I actually do hear that pretty frequently because I talk really openly about some of the things that I've experienced throughout my life, and in doing so, I think it kind of helped some other people who are I mean, that I've been told that because I'm willing to be really vulnerable,
Mhm.
that then people look and say, whoa, I mean, I can get out of this
Well, I
situation
know
too.
you well that you're not a it's like you're just not saying such an open book, but you are as transparent as possible. And it's very you want to be around people like that, right? Because you want to know that the person that you're talking to or working with is just as genuine as you are, right? And you want to feel that same emotion. I think you put emotion in everything you do. And so I think that with this particular job that you're doing really has that fit for you because that's emotional connection because you want them to feel what you feel.
Yeah, I think another piece kind of my personality is definitely empathy, and even as a young person, that also kind of manifests itself into just kind of being a good read of people.
Yeah.
And so that certainly plays into it as well. But it's interesting that when we talk about me being an open book, and I do sometimes have to be told you need to rein it in this setting, but um, that's a very new thing because, like so many of us, I mean, I've spent so many years of my life kind of being driven by what I thought I was supposed to do and be, and feeling like because I left college just before graduating, that even though I'd had these really great opportunities and could take care of a family by myself, I was still a failure, and it was embarrassing. But the last few years have just brought me to a place of own who you are and be authentic. That may just be an aging thing too, right? I mean, we get to a certain age and it's like, I cannot be what everybody else wants me to be.
I'm finally well, there's a point in time where I think you have to finally feel free to be who you are, be free to say, not to be mean, but just to be you, be unique, be accepting of who you are. And I think it's a deep down impersonal, that personal part. And I think that once you touch base with that, then everything else is going to have to figure its way out because the most important person is you. Because if you're not grounded and you're not healthy, then everything else around you is not going to be good for you, right? We all know that domino effect. I think you're definitely, we go through transformations. right? We don't talk and think the same way that we were in our 20s because we were all having a good time. 30s is when, oh my gosh, I got to take it serious,
It's
be a family.
grinding.
40s. So there's like these stages that we're like committed to. But I think that once we hit like our 50, right, that 50 number, you're like, I got to be, there's something more.
So I'm not quite there yet. Maybe the MS diagnosis is what accelerated me, to that point. But I'm close. 3 years, so I'm already there. But I actually, even 30s going to 40s, I was like, ugh, I loved my 30s more than I thought I would. But I don't know about being 40. My 40s, I'm like, would people say if you could pick any age to be, 47, what I am right now,
Yeah.
And I, at this point,
actually like 40s, the 40s, 45s, 47s.
I'm looking at my 50s going, my goodness, if every decade continues to get better, then my fit, and especially too, if like my inhibitions, the things that hold me back from doing the things that I want to do, if those continue to fall away, then I may be in a VW bus just traveling the country talking to people. And if I could get enough sponsors, have a YouTube channel or something. I mean,
is that what they say? Like, it's, was it fine wine? Are we fine wine now? Are we becoming fine wine? What is it? The quote that
we're antiques, so that's something,
I don't necessarily call us antiques. I think we're
vintage.
I think we're definitely aging gracefully. And I do think that we see differently now. I think that like even our friends and our families, we look at them a little bit differently as we get a little bit older because we start feeling more of like in tune to what we want as individuals too. And I think that crosses into our business decisions, people, whatever. I think that's how I feel. I'm pretty sure I'm in tune with that with you. But can I ask you something? If you could describe like something that you failed at, what is the one thing that comes to mind right now? Because we always talk about success,
mm-hmm.
but we don't really talk about failure.
Oh gosh, I mean, first of all, there are little ones every day. I mean, another thing about getting to a certain age is that like locking your keys in the car at a client's or
or don't be like me. I left my wallet at the house and I drove all the way to my business and I'm like, I felt like how could you forget that? I'm not saying that's a failure. We're just like those moments.
So those little things. When I think about it, it's honestly kind of I guess I'll have to say the restaurant because it was 10 plus years of saving and putting money together. And I mean, in hindsight, it's laughable. Like when I have a stand-up act, it will be part of it. Like how laughable it is, how we young and stupid jumped into this. But so everything that we made, of course, our friends lost everything they'd saved in that amount of time in the market anyway. So at least we had fun doing it. But that loss, and not because we didn't make it longer. What we actually learned too is that lifestyle was so inconducive to where we wanted to be with our families.
Maybe was it timing?
We both went into there were just so many things. The building itself was like, have you ever seen the movie The Money Pit?
Yeah.
So the building was like that, but on a commercial scale. That was just a small piece of it. But having jumped into that without doing enough due diligence and it was careless in a decision that was made for all the wrong reasons. But even our failures end up having great results. It got my family to Huntsville, and we've loved it here. It's been a great place to raise the kids, led to the work. And when I got to work at the television station, I eventually ended up getting to wander more into some new stuff and producing and doing segments even our failures can lead to the best opportunities, and they teach us so much if we'll listen.
Well, I've got a quote. I'm going to mention this one. I think this is an appropriate quote because I love quotes. Yes. I think quotes are such a great way to motivate you, especially when you're having such a hard day, because we all have them, right? And I don't know about you, I used to write them on a sticky note and put them in my mirror in my bathroom. And I don't know if anybody else out there actually does that or not, but I love that. I put my quote in front of me. And I used to make my children write a quote down and read it to me when they went to school, so that they started off on their day on a positive note. Because I always believe that every day should start with a positive note, because I do think that that's how you start your day. Because if you know, right, you start with a negative note, your whole day's ruined. You feel like that you're stuck in this hole and you don't know how to get out of it. So I have this quote. I thought this was really good. It says, maybe the hardest part of life is just having the courage to try. And so I think that sometimes, like when we look at job opportunities, that where you're at, the opportunity of meeting you, the opportunity of being with a great company, you're giving people an opportunity to try. And I think that's important. So I have to say, Leslie, you're just you've got so many great stories. You are an inspiration to a lot of us that, we all go through troubles and hard times in our lives, but you always have, every time I see you, you've got a smile on your face. You're just just a warm person to be around. I feel your happiness when I'm around you. So I know that when we look at success and we look at an opportunity, you give people that opportunity to try.
Well, thank you very, very much. I will use that actually just to make one cause for something, one plug for a cause that's become very, very important to me as I've gone through this. Many times when you see me and I seem happy and I'm smiling and whatever it may be, I'm in incredible pain or haven't slept for 2 to 3 days. And just think of me the next time, not to you specifically, but just out in the world, the next time you hear somebody say, that person doesn't look sick. Why can't they do this? They don't look sick. Because a lot of times we don't.
Yeah.
We try really, really hard not to. So,
yeah. And I think that's a really good way of saying things. Is that there was a post I saw the other day, and it had this girl. She had 2 pictures of herself, and both of them she was smiling. And she wrote a note. One of these represents when I was so deeply depressed that she almost thought about ending her life. And the other one was the happiest moment in her life. Could you tell the difference in the 2 photos? And I think that that's something to be really said. I think that's really needs to be something that we all need to look at in the mirror as at ourselves going, who am I today? Right?
But with maturity, I think that we get to a place that we say, and again, I do not at all. Depression is a completely different thing. Been there, done that, getting to the other side of it, which I say we're always kind of, like you say, you're always an alcoholic, always recovering. Once you've been severely depressed, you're always aware of the pit below you and do things to help keep you healthy. See a therapist when you start to waver on the tightrope. But I think you get to a place of it, or I have, where I've decided that it really doesn't matter what else is going on. I'm going to be joyful because it's going to happen that way anyway.
Right. And I think that's a great opportunity.
Yes.
Plug.
Right.
So I just want to say thank you so much, Leslie, for coming on to our podcast today. And I really enjoyed sharing some time with you. And because I know we stay so busy, it was just a great pleasure to have you in the room with me today and being able to hear you and share some of your story and why you do what you do. Such a pleasure. I hope that we get to do another podcast.
Well, we didn't even get to our planned topic, so we have to because it was so much fun.
Yeah, we did. So we'll schedule another podcast because I think this was a really great educational one. But we do have another one that I wanted to get to as well today. And I think now that we're almost running out of time.
It's too late. We can't do it.
We got to schedule that one. I think that would be a great one because I think it's a great book that you were talking to me about. I'd really like to do that. So thank you for today's podcast. Today is behind the scenes, or behind the person, right? Behind the person behind the scene as far as a resume. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely. My pleasure and honor, Carla. Thank you.
Thank you.